Hello, this is Nadeem Zaidi, and today I want to discuss question answering technique for a question that I gave in class, an 8-mark question, and the question was related to product positioning and market mapping. So let's see how we can address this question. So if I were to, the specific question was explain what is understood by product positioning and market mapping. Now, please keep in mind if the question is 8-mark or 5-mark, uh, even in such questions, the examiner will expect a certain level of analysis and evaluation in addition to the exhibition of knowledge as well as application. So, if I were to answer this question, how will I approach it? I will say that a product is a general term used to describe the nature of what is being sold. The brand, on the other hand, distinguishes a name or a symbol that is used to differentiate one manufacturer's products from the other, and it is very important to use the right strategy for this kind of differentiation. For example, Mercedes is a special brand which stands out from other cars, and it has a specific personality. And the Mercedes then creates a powerful image and perception in the mind of the customer, which then guarantees sales and enhanced revenue for the company. But in order to create such a brand, the product needs to relate to other brands in the market uh, in the minds of the customer, and it should be differentiated as such. And a strategy is needed for firms to analyze how the brand will relate to other brands in the market. This is called product positioning, and in order to carry out product positioning, a technique called market mapping is used. The market mapping happens in several stages. The first stage is to identify the features of the product considered to be important to the consumer. This will be established by market research. For example, the features which are important for a Mercedes purchaser are comfort, durability, reliability, as well as an aura of being different from others, or in other words, a certain level of snob value is also in order. These features, uh, of course, also include the perceived image of the product. So this requires the positioning of the product in the mind of the customer using market mapping requires the analysis of the product in a wide variety of ways. This can be done, for example, by identifying a potential gap for a product. Now, a gap is a segment that the business is aiming for, and it is highly possible that this gap may not have been identified before, or this segment may not have been identified before by a competitor. For example, when Nestle launched artificial sweeteners, that gap had existed in the market for some time, and it had not been identified by any of its competitors. That's why when that gap was identified and Nestle positioned itself as the sweetener of choice, its sales skyrocketed and its revenues went up. It was also a pretty safe strategy, but safe strategies usually involve less competition, they are less risky, and they might also be less profitable. Once the sector of the market has been identified, the marketing manager then will have to decide which features of the product will then have to be most aggressively marketed to the consumer. For example, artificial sweeteners may be marketed not as alternatives to sugar, but as health products in their own right. Furthermore, when the analysis is used to monitor the position of existing brands, you can use your knowledge obtained through the analysis to reposition the product as is required. For example, there are several products which, when launched initially, were not a very great success. One great example is the brand of drinks which is called, it will come to my mind. However, that brand initially did not do very well, and initially it failed, but later on it was recast in new advertisements as a brand used by people who were very adventurous and people who were risk takers and loved to live on the edge. So when that happened, the product which had failed earlier, its sales skyrocketed, its revenues went up. However, please keep in mind that market mapping and market positioning and product positioning in the market is more to do with the image one creates. And in order for the product to be successfully positioned, it is important that the right image and the most appealing image is created for the consumer. The best conceived image may also not do well. It may also fail to promote the product if the customer does not find it appealing. So before creating the imagery, the preferences and the distinguishing features of the product which will appeal to the customer must be clearly identified and ascertained. So that is how I'm going to approach this particular question, and I hope this was useful. Now, if you see in this question, I have used all the points related to knowledge. I have used as many examples as possible. Now, some of those examples may not make a lot of sense, but please do keep in mind that your examiner knows that you are a 17-year-old and you are not coming from the industry. So even if you use examples that are not very scientific and appealing, they will be good for your answer, as long as they make business sense to the extent to what you have studied in the concepts in the book. There is also analysis, because you are linking this with revenue constantly, and in the end, in 3 lines, you have given a very short evaluation of why even good positioning strategies may not work. Okay, so best of luck with this, and try to formulate an answer yourself.